Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Comics Della Morte, episode 72 Ransom Notes Arrested Development, with my buddy, my co host, Jason Alexander. Now, for anyone that doesn't know out there, before I let him talk, when we first met in a Discord, this was his baby, this was his passion. And yeah, he went off to do the Mindy Comics bundle. He went off to do like an anthology story. But I'm proud to say, not just as a co-host, but as a friend, to see him finally get this done and to like really put his heart and soul to it.
It exists. I love it.
So, I'm Ronnie Gunter, Crimson Owl Comics, but I'll promote my stuff towards the end of the show because it's all about him right now.
Oh man, it ain't got to be all about me.
Oh,
I'm just excited to talk about the book, man. I really am.
So, tell anybody that's new to the show that might be coming on, what is this book all about?
Okay, so years ago, I escaped the cult. It's been I'm moving quickly towards 10 years, but it's really only been like 5 or 6. Mm-hmm. But I knew I wanted, once it like really started to come apart, I knew I wanted to create something. And I knew I wanted to write something. And I wanted to write, but then I also knew like how comics had made me feel. And
the link to the comic down below.
Awesome. I knew how comics had made me feel in the past. Like certain comics like had really stirred me a lot because I didn't have a lot of like external entertainment. And so I decided I wanted to do Ransom Notes as a comic. Like I wanted to tell this story about the things that I used to believe because it was so much more than knocking on doors and wearing suits and not celebrating holidays. And so I ended up doing a book that was kind of a snapshot of all these different beliefs and all these different toxic experiences that you have. And I turned the volume all the way up. And so that's kind of what Ransom Notes is. Now, this story, Arrested Development, or this volume, I should say, it's kind of the quick ideas. It's like some of them don't need, multi-page epics to get across. Some of them sting the most because it is so subtle until you really think about it. And so I wanted to collect a lot of these stories and I wanted to capture the feeling. That's why I did so much of the art a little rougher than what you would see. It's almost like storyboarding because I just wanted to get the ideas as they came out. And that's what I ended up doing. I'm happy with how it turned out.
But that's why I like it though, because some comics do really well when you have the artwork that's like really fine, but this one, like you were saying, it's rough and sketchy at some parts, but it goes well with the story because like I said on the show before we went live, this is pretty much a biography of your life.
In a lot of ways, it really is. Yeah.
So seeing that like sketchy, rough drawings, as you put it, it goes perfect because that's what pretty much like is being part of a cult. You look, like this on the outside, but then on the inside, you feel and look like that.
You're destroyed. Absolutely. And so I think I said it with you and Gary a little bit ago. I just want these stories to kind of feel like you're trying to do anything you can. What's up, Gary?
As soon as you said them.
It's like I saw it's like Shazam. Mm-hmm. But, I almost wanted you to feel like you were trying to get out of a bear trap before the person who said it came back.
For sure.
And that's the way I wanted these stories to feel. And that's the way I think I want Ransom Notes in general to feel. And I got a little bit of news I'll get to before we wrap up the conversation.
Awesome. So with the Speak of the Devil, yeah. So how many Ransom Notes are you planning to make?
Um, so I have quite a few of these short style stories.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I have like there's an actual about 3 act story of Ransom Notes.
Mm-hmm.
Is part of it is in Arrested Development. Part of Blood Doctrine kind of intersects this the actual major story. It all kind of does,
Yeah.
but the main character in Blood Doctrine does exist in the full version of Ransom Notes.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's the easiest way to say it.
Okay.
I'm not sure how that part's going to look, but I think that we're going to transition Ransom Notes to webcomics.
Okay.
I
Gotcha.
think that that's the next move. I think that this might be it's the only print that I know of that Ransom Notes will be in, because I want it
Mm-hmm.
to be a little bit more accessible,
Yeah.
because it's my story, yes, but I feel like it's an important story, and I feel like that it'll connect more than just people who that had been Jehovah's Witnesses, and more than people who had the feeling is not stuck to religion. The
Mm-hmm.
feeling is the feeling.
Yeah.
I went to a therapist early on, and she was like, "A lot of the things you say are a lot of the things that people who are in bad relationships say, or people who are
Mm-hmm.
preparing to leave a relationship. It's all the same feeling. So it doesn't have to be like, if you tell a good story, and I think I tell a pretty good story, it
Yeah.
doesn't you don't have to be on the nose with everybody to connect. And
Mm-hmm.
that's my goal with Ransom Notes, because it's a very niche subject on the surface, but it's something that we can all relate to. Like
Yeah.
we've all experienced being taken advantage of in
Oh
some
yeah, for sure.
capacity. And
Mm-hmm.
so,
Even if it's work related, people, thinking,
yep,
oh, you're a great worker, you're a nice guy, I'll just use you, and when a promotion comes, you don't get it. So yeah, I
yep,
totally understand.
yep.
So
It's
so with Ransom Notes, like I said, I've when we first met in the Discord, this was your baby project and everything. And for a comic that has hit so close to home, like you could go into detail or not about it, but when you were drawing it and writing it, did you have the take times to really take a break from it, because it kind of had you go into a certain place where you haven't been in before, where
yep,
it's like you had a therapist, she helped you get out of this cult mindset, but now you're writing and drawing this stuff. It's almost like picking at a a, a fresh wound in a way, even
yep,
though that it was scarred
yep.
up many years ago.
Absolutely, yeah. Um, there is an iteration of Ransom Notes that started to exist,
Yeah.
and it was called Open Wounds.
Hmm.
But this is a story that I'm sure you remember. I've picked up and put down quite a few times,
Oh yeah.
because sometimes, like, to tap in, and that's the thing. It's like it's never where I haven't been before. It's
Hmm.
where it's like it's going back to the muck. And
Yep.
like early on, like when I was going through like some heavy duty mental stuff, it was too much. Like it was too
Hmm.
much for me to balance with trying to get used to living real life and writing this book. I had to put it down a couple of times, but I
Right.
didn't stop. I didn't stop creating. And
Hmm.
I think that it allowed me to, number one, learn that I had other stories that had nothing to do with the Jehovah's Witnesses inside of me that
Yeah.
were good stories. And also, number two, it helped me to get better before I even attempted to make a run at like publishing something under the Ransom Notes title, because
Yeah,
that
because I
is,
read I read some of the early scripts that you were
yeah,
writing, you know,
yep,
and like reading from that early script to the book now, I could definitely tell that you really honed your skills as a writer
Yep.
to get, you know, the message across that you're trying to, and not focus so much on one area, because you know now, like, there are ways that I could, like, focus on key events that are still going to make this comic not
Yep.
just scary for people, but like you said, enlightening, and help people to come out of
Yeah.
that that culture, that cult that they might
Yep.
be in.
Yep. Ransom Notes 1,000% is shining a light by sharing darkness.
Mm-hmm.
That's 1,000. It's the only way that I can tell you what I experienced, is to show you how dark what I experienced is.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it should be uncomfortable to hear, because
Mm-hmm.
it's uncomfortable to live through.
For sure.
But like you were saying about, kind of trying to hone your skills, it's imperative, and you have to like tighten up. And doing a show like this, like, and I almost feel like even the order of the things that we reviewed was like perfect for me to get used to writing horror, because I wanted to write horror and I wanted to create horror. Number one, before I really knew what that was. But once we started the channel, I knew I wanted to create horror, but I didn't really know a lot. I didn't really know a lot about how different horror movies
genre.
and the genre is so sub niched. Like you can miss a lot.
So that's why it's so great.
Yeah, absolutely. You can miss a lot. And to start with like the vintage stuff that we did, with like the pulp stuff that me and you and Robert discussed, and then like pretty quickly, like we went to that book with Russ.
Oh yeah.
And then it was like, once Uzumaki hit,
oh yeah,
it changed everything. And then and I'm not just saying this because you're here, Gary, but like for real, to then read Dinosaurs versus Marsbots, which, number one, I feel like artistically is A1 fantastic, but it also showed me like at the independent level, like there were many, many levels to storytelling that I hadn't even had a chance to experience yet. Yeah. And, then doing Scott Serkland's book and knowing like, okay, these are my peers and they're really good at it. And then A Vengeful Heart came out and I'm like, now the co-host is doing it. And I'm like, just want to get good at it. And so it was nice. And working with Aaron is in his true element, drawing horror. I love the horror.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Like through the minis, like that was a whole different experience for a writer, because it wasn't all horror. It wasn't even as much horror as I would have wanted it to be honest, because I felt like those stories were at their best when they were scary. Yeah. But I knew that like all of that could really help Ransom Notes. Like my peers and my experience could really help Ransom Notes. And I felt like that these stories kind of captured that initial feeling. And I'm happy with it, Ronnie. Like I really, really am. I'm proud of it. I'm proud of the stories. I'm cool with it if people don't get it, because I'm happy with it. And I don't really think that you can really ask for much more than that.
Well, that's the thing with any type of comic in general. You're never going to have everybody that's going to like your work.
Yeah, it's really not for everybody. How many times have we said that, even with the things that we've reviewed? Like, like Blood Realm is fantastic, but if it's not always what you're looking for. Yeah. But it has a place and it's really, really good. Landon and John's book. Oh my gosh. What was the name of that book, Ronnie? Why am I drawing a blank? Bleen. That's not for everybody, but I got it immediately. And that was another levels book for me. Like that was like when I was like, okay, like I want in on this. Like the horror iron is hot. Like seeing what you were doing, like your colors, like your horror colors kept getting better and your story kept getting more intense.
Thank you, I
And
appreciate
then
it.
when we did Glean, and I'm like it is like it's one of those things. Like it is fine to be dark, and
Yeah.
that was the same thing that I felt like with Uzumaki. Like, oh, it is fine to make the most nonsense thing that you can think of really, really scary. And if you can make it work, then you can make it work. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be a bad idea just because it sounds. Sorry, guys, I'm gonna say something stupid, but I understand what I mean. It doesn't have to. If it sounds like a bad idea, sometimes it's not always a bad idea. Like
Mm-hmm.
just hone it, keep polishing it. If you believe in it,
Hey,
I got a superhero story that
how many
is still
how
lumpy
many of
right
us
now.
how many of us think, oh, this is a stupid idea mixing these two foods together, and sometimes that tastes great.
Hot dogs and mashed potatoes are like a very good dark horse combination.
Gotcha.
Hot mashed potatoes on the hot dog, really, really good. But yeah, like you write too, Ronnie. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
sometimes if you get an idea in your head, it's just a matter of making it interesting. If you think it's
for sure.
interesting, make it interesting. Like I think
Mm-hmm.
I can make stories interesting.
Yeah. So it's funny how you were saying trying to find ways to balance while you're working on this, and it's perfect that you picked, this of all things to be the balance, because it's like Thanos, like everything's perfectly balanced now. So
Yeah.
can you go a little bit into detail? Like, is there any like special thing on what each like where the Infinity Stones used to be, what those symbols are?
They are very. Some of them are very like thin. Like one is a quote from Watchtower that says,
Mm-hmm.
"Listen, obey, and be blessed." It's kind of like a kid. It's kind of like a kid cult thing that they do. I was just talking about planets with Jill and John, and the other day we were like, maybe that's
Yeah.
it. It's
Mm-hmm.
totally it.
For
Yeah,
sure.
like I could explain Planet of the Apes, and you guys would be like, "This is easily the worst idea in
Mm-hmm.
ever." But it's been attractive enough for people to do what 3 or 4 times now with like sequels in every generation almost.
Oh yeah.
You know, but so this is obviously that's the Watchtower.
Mm-hmm.
.org is that's their website is I won't say their website because I want anybody to go to it. And this just says because it's a religion that thrives on silence.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So the ape just says no really, really loud when he gets tased. And
Right.
then all hell breaks loose. Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, okay. Here comes the Tony Stark guy. Yeah. But no, the Infinity Gauntlet is like ultimate power. And
Mm-hmm.
I felt like that was a great symbol for following 8 men in New York,
Yeah.
or 7 men plus one, and it's just in that power is a lot of sad darkness. Like it makes
Mm-hmm.
people really, really ugly. Like the organization makes people really, really the worst versions of themselves, and
Yeah.
that's kind of what I wanted to capture. And you know,
So even though that this brought up like bad memories, what was probably your most favorite thing to draw out of the whole book?
Awestruck. Awestruck is my most favorite story in the whole book,
Mm-hmm.
because that is that's the story of the things that you grow to accept and look forward to that nobody should ever wish on anybody.
Yeah.
Like to be able to smile at death and destruction of
Mm-hmm.
billions of people and pray for it. It's really wrong.
Yeah.
I'm just turning my camera off. I'm still here. I got to plug my tablet in real quick.
Oh, that's fine.
But no, it's easily just to see people with these I wanted to include, and maybe I will one day. I wanted to include like these visions of paradise in their glasses
Mm-hmm.
because it really is like you're asked to look past so much shocking things, and like they've gone into, the governing body has gone into details to describe what human bodies will look like bloated and dead.
Oh yeah, I mean, when you really think about it, it's kind of like, uh, it's kind of like you have a flashlight. All you are, and the cult kind of wants you to just focus on what we're showing you in this light instead
Yep.
of having a candle that will light up the whole room and
Yeah.
show you how the bigger picture is and show you that this really isn't the place you need to be.
Right. Or they'll burn your neighbor's house down to
Yeah.
tell you that they needed the light to keep you safe.
Mm-hmm.
So you should thank them for burning your neighbor's house down.
Yeah.
Like, it's a really scary thing, and Ransom Note's purpose is to spread a message of how scary it is,
Mm-hmm.
and give me a little bit of, and honestly give me a little bit of peace in the
Well,
long
yeah.
run, to know that I did the same thing. I did exactly what they told me to do,
Mm-hmm.
and once I saw evil, I wouldn't stop talking about it. And that's, if I'm writing, there will probably always be there will always be something Ransom Notes that could exist at any point.
Yeah.
But Ronnie, I want to be a horror writer. I live in Maine, for crying out loud.
Right.
Like,
You could literally find where Stephen King lives and be a crazy fan. Maybe break his knees with a hammer.
I was gonna say, yeah, like, imagine me dressed as Kathy Bates. Like,
Oh man.
maybe I could. Who knows?
Gary
Hold
has
on,
a
let's see.
question.
Is there a comic book or movie that you? Oh my goodness. Okay, so
We all probably know where this is going.
I've found with so many blonde white women in movies, because that is like that's the only approved version of me. And sadly enough, I will never be a blonde white woman. But Midsummer is a movie that captures Midsummer captures the trauma of the cult experience better than anything that I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
Closely followed, I'll save that for later. But Midsummer, to answer your question, Midsummer, it makes you accept, like, most people will be in between. Most people will never see the best version of it, and most people will never be the bear.
Yeah.
But everybody's going to be somewhere in between. And if if your 72nd birthday comes up and you have to jump off a rock, like, you had a good run. Like, you accept the rest of it, because at least you wasn't a bear. At least you didn't have to go into the building and get burned alive.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as people fall into that realm, everybody's okay. Everybody just, everybody just dances. And that's the end of it. And it's really, really pretty, and it's really, really scary, and it's really, really sad. And nothing captured those three things for me in a movie quite like Midsummer. Before Midsummer, I would say They Live, but
yeah. I mean,
definitely Midsummer now.
Before we came on, my nephew, who's 18, like, I said, "Oh, Midsummer's a great movie," and yeah, he watched it and he's like, "Yeah, it really is." And just because they do such a good job imitating what it's really like to be in that type of group and that atmosphere,
Yep.
that it's one of those, yeah. When that movie, like, people watch it because it's not going to scare you like in a body horror way. It's going to scare you in here, and that's where it's worse.
Unsettled. You will
because
be unsettled from
because
the
it's
first time
betting
you
in
hear.
it's betting in your mind. Like a jump scare, you'll remember that, but horror like that could mess you up for a very long time.
It's so wild because it does a few gruesome things
Yeah.
at just the right time, and it doesn't really shock you,
Hmm.
but it's kind of gross. Like it's kind of scary, gross. Like including the drink that Christian had to drink.
Oh yeah.
Like it's really gross, but it's all like once it's set into motion, nobody dare not disturb it,
Hmm.
and that's being in a cult. If you could be a Jehovah's Witness in that setting, you would never leave the Jehovah's Witnesses. It would
Yeah.
be if you didn't know any better, it would be really hard for you to ever leave. If everything
Hmm.
was good, it's really hard not to be a Jehovah's Witness if it's all you know.
Yeah.
That's the scary truth.
So I've seen, if anybody knows too, besides the coming out with Ransom Notes, you have your YouTube channel, and lately you've been pretty much talking about that stuff. Like,
Yep.
what made you all of a sudden want to like do a podcast with like people who probably been part of that or have
Yep.
something familiar with that?
Well,
What brought that about?
it's important. It's important to find other voices
Hmm.
that have been through something like this. It
Yeah,
really,
for sure.
really is, because a lot of times, like even for me, it's hard to talk about if I'm just by myself. Like it's hard to
Hmm.
really get a groove on talking about. It's kind of why I like TikTok so much, because I can
Yeah.
just get a thought out. But
Hmm.
like there's so much that happens behind the scenes, and everybody's experience is so different, and their trauma with regards to the organization is so different that you get so wrapped up in your own, you forget that other people are hurt just as bad as you, but just different than you are. And
Oh yeah.
so, it is important to hear other people's experiences, because for a lot of people, getting out is getting away, and
Hmm.
that being that, it's hard for me to just walk away from it and not warn people about how dangerous it is. And
Yeah.
so, no, I definitely want to find people who think like me about it and are trying to use their voice to counteract some things that they might have said in the past.
Hmm. Very, very good. But yeah, I mean, is there any type of artwork that you really want to show without spoiling a lot?
Yeah, you know what? Like, let me see if I can pull up my Google Drive. I can show pictures better, because I think now I've learned how to zoom in. Don't hold me to it though. I'm gonna try to do my best. Like, that's all we really got out here. So, uh,
And anybody doesn't know, his you do on Saturdays, right? Saturday nights.
I usually try to do on the weekend.
Yeah.
I usually do either Saturday nights or Sunday nights. Foggy frequencies is what I call it, because sometimes it's a conversation with somebody else. Like I had my friend Asher on a little bit ago. Is a he's a big time activist. He
Mm.
is known and has an episode of a show on Vice where he goes into Kingdom Halls and protests during the meetings. This was pre-pandemic,
Oh
but
wow.
very, very powerful, because he's lost a lot to the organization. And people don't really, there's a contingent of people who are against hall crashing, but I feel like it's one of the most important things if it's done the right way. And there's nobody that I know that does it in a violent way. Um,
Yeah,
but
I mean, because there's people like in religious cults is one of those things that if you leave the cult, I know from like not experienced by myself, but from other people besides
yep,
you, that once you leave the cult, if you have any family member that's part of that cult, you're pretty much dead to them. You know,
I,
it doesn't
something I
matter. It
always
doesn't matter if you're blood related or not. You are an infidel, and you're you're cast out.
yeah, you don't have a family if you're not a part of the
Hmm.
organization.
Yeah.
That's something that is real. It's something that that I'm currently a truth that I live every day.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any relationship with my family in North Carolina, mostly because of the organization,
Mm-hmm.
because I won't believe or stand for anything that they do. And my family does in 3 dimensions. And so
Yeah.
I can't speak about important things if I'm going to tolerate things that have happened. So,
Yeah.
they choose to not associate with me, but I also choose to not associate with them at this point.
Mm-hmm.
It can't just go back to normal just because, like it's the messed up thing. The
Yeah.
messed up thing about the organization is like there's so much that's done in the name of it that
Mm-hmm.
you can't really go back anymore. Like
Yeah.
the damage is done on a level that makes it impossible to just hope that things go back.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
So while you're searching up, like, tell not just me but the audience, what made you come up with the title Ransom Notes?
well,
Like, you could
we
have called it Watchtower or anything like that.
we're built out of ransom. Like everything that we do, from the stories of because the organization is not Christian. I don't
Mm-hmm.
believe that their Christian sacrifice that they claim is the same.
Yeah.
My beliefs are my beliefs, but for them to they everything is guilt based around a ransom. You always have to sacrifice for the organization. You have to sacrifice for your God, even though you are already have supposed to receive a sacrifice that you can't ever repay.
For sure.
So
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
they thrive on this guilt humility complex, and so you're being held hostage. The only way you can get out of being held hostage, or what your hostage takers always produce to let you know they have you, is a ransom note. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's what I wanted to produce. Fallbreaker Studios should have ransom notes. There should be notes from the inside out, and that's what I'm doing. So the regular logo, the regular cover looks nothing like this. Like it's
Gotcha.
it's got its own separate animal. Which once I get to the end of this limited run, the cover will
Mm-hmm.
change, and this cover definitely won't be available anymore. I'll go with a different cover. I already have it
Gotcha.
done. It'll be a different cover. It'll be anything that you see with the Ransom Notes brand on it will have the proper logo and everything like that. So
Mm-hmm.
that's coming soon. I'm gonna start using my Instagram more to
Gotcha.
post that. But
Awesome.
I
So you
got a
got the
chip on my
picture?
shoulder, Ronnie.
Yeah.
I'm gonna show it from the book because
Gotcha.
my Google Drive pictures, I'm unprepared because that's kind of how I get down.
No, it's all right.
Um,
I'm gonna make you solo so you could make it bigger.
all right, so this is Awestruck.
Mm-hmm.
You can kind of see a little bit of the Ransom Notes logo in the corner here, but this picture here is probably, to this point, probably one of my most favorite things to draw.
Yeah.
It's these people that have just gone through this terrible death and destruction.
Mm-hmm.
They've seen this in the background over here. You can see like this construct. This isn't real. It's almost like a false reality that's being built around them while people are
Gotcha.
being destroyed. And
Mm-hmm.
and they see it, they see their friends and family going through it. They see their friends and families being destroyed. And they are not afraid of it because they've been told that it was going to happen. So they're just in awe. And
Yeah.
it fully captures that hopelessness that you, when I've talked to Jehovah's Witnesses, and the things that I try to say to them
Mm-hmm.
that should be dark and scary, a lot of the times they will respond with something like, "Oh yeah, isn't it fantastic? Like, isn't it fantastic the provisions that we have?" And it's like, no, like, did you not hear what I just said? Like, it's like Nightmare on Elm Street, or like
Yeah.
where the adults can't see what these kids are going through.
Yeah, because it's pretty much, the way that I think of it when I looked at that. Like you said, these people are brainwashed, but there are certain people who, for whatever reason, like you and others, realize that, hey, this way of thinking, this isn't paradise. This is hell.
Yeah, it absolutely would be.
So you're like, you're seeing past, the fake wonderland that people put up.
Yep.
So
If you wanna know the peace that the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society can provide,
don't
you need to
drink the
look.
juice.
You need to look no further than Jonestown. You need to
Mhm.
look no further than documented slavery. You need to look no further than the Native American massacre.
Oh
You
yeah.
need, like, all of these things are all little pieces of the quilt that is Watchtower Bible and Tract Society. And I'm
Mhm.
sure plenty of other religious entities fall into this category. But that's for somebody else to speak on a lot of the
Yeah.
times. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
people know what they believe, and like, you have to come to terms with it if you don't.
Yeah.
That's pretty much, like, it's not a it's I'm Ronnie, I gotta be honest, man. Like, I'm very excited to write something else. Like, I'm very excited to write a horror story,
Hmm.
and I'm very excited to write things that have less and less to do. Like, now that Ransom Notes exist, I hope everybody goes and gets it.
Yeah.
But it's
Links
like,
in description. I
it
had the banner up here. So yeah. I
it
mean,
exists, and it's such a powerful book for me. Like, it's
yeah.
so rewarding to create something that I never thought that I would be able to.
Mhm.
Like, and that's the proof of the failure of the cult. You know what I mean? The cult is built to make you one individual, and
Mhm.
I have my own magazine now. Like, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? So I'm catching up slowly but surely. They've produced a lot of Watchtowers.
Hmm.
So maybe one day I'll have produced as many as they have.
Yeah. So people, to get back at that, buy a bunch of Ransom Notes comics and put it in a Jehovah Witness book so that way people could see and open up.
Once I can get a mass order done, that that means a lot, Gary. I appreciate it. That's awesome, man. Thanks a lot. Um, it's nice that I get to join the rest of the world now. Like,
Yeah.
I really do feel like I get to, like, now I get to contribute to my community that's, like, helped me so much.
Hmm.
And it's like, I have comics to offer back. Comics have really saved my creativity in a lot of ways and given me an identity. And I have a chip on my shoulder about our community. Not really, not really individuals, but, like, I want to make. I feel like I should have a stamp in it.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm driving a little angry right now, but
Awesome.
it's okay.
So, with Ransom Notes and stuff like that, you have, we're both basically, we, instead of using our real names, we both use like our company name if you really want to think about it. So
Yep.
with Fogbreaker Studios, with the whole like, you know, the lighthouse and everything, did you come up with that title because I mean that logo because it was supposed to represent Ransom Notes, or you just like lighthouse in general?
The so Okay, so it's kind of multi-tiered. The
Mm-hmm.
lighthouse is, number one, it's representative of Maine. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
consider Maine my home. Maine is my purpose home. When I was 11 years old, I told my mom I was going to move to Maine. I didn't really know how it was. I didn't really know where it was. I knew that there was snow, and I knew that I
Mm-hmm.
would live in Maine one day. And I made it to Maine. Um, Cults run on a basis of fear, obligation, and guilt,
Yeah.
and I wanted to do something I wanted the name of my company, because I knew that Ransom Notes would exist through it. I wanted the name of my company to kind of represent what I was doing to that fear, obligation, and guilt that I was raised with.
Mm-hmm.
And another name for a lighthouse is a fog breaker, because they keep ships safe. They keep ships from crashing into the shore. And so
Mm-hmm.
once I decided to make art my activism, Fog Breaker Studios was really the only name that my company would ever be. So it's a name that I want. I always want Watchtower to know that name. I want them to know that I'm on their ass for sure.
You hear that itself, you know. Awesome.
Even if I'm not writing about the witnesses, because I've given them so much of my life, I won't be writing about them forever. Like
Mm-hmm.
I won't even be writing about them next, I don't think. So, but they should always know that like I'm capable. And they should always know that somewhere, if somebody has ears, I will find a way to tell them that Watchtower is evil and dangerous, because it is. It's hurt a lot of people, and I won't ever, if they exist, I won't not talk about it. So
Yeah.
that's the mission statement of Fall Breaker Studios. We tell scary stories, but sometimes we're kind of like Monsters Inc. Like we scare because we care. So
Yeah.
that's this kind of what we do here.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Thank you for like giving me the interview treatment, man. That's awesome. I appreciate
not
it.
a problem. I really sat down and thought hard of questions I really wanted to ask.
It had to be you. Like, for anybody that watches this, is watching this now, don't make this mushy. But for anybody who's watching this now, and anybody who watches it in the future, legit, I was waiting when I decided to do comics. I was waiting on my iPad to come, and I got on the Discord, and I just started like consuming everything that I could about comics. And Ronnie was one of the first people that I chatted with in the voice chat that was another creator. And every step, for real, like I am not bullshitting, every step of my existence in comics, like Ronnie has been around. And so
thank you. I appreciate that,
once the game changed for me, and I decided that I wanted to be a horror creator, almost like by chance, Ronnie approaches me and Robert and says, I want to do a horror review show. And I'm like, you know what? Like that could be really cool. But through that, like I've learned so much about horror and like the actual history of it. I've read books that I've liked. I've read books that I haven't really liked.
Mm-hmm.
I've read books like Hellraiser that I was completely turned off by. But like I've gone through so many books that have really changed the way that I create. And I've met people like you, and I met people like Gary, and like I get to have conversations with people like Scott Circlin. Like I'm really like it's really hard to believe like the people that I get to have benefited from, and the people that I've worked with. Even like Aaron, like even working with Aaron. To be honest, I hate the way that it ended, but I would never not go through that experience, because I hope that he grew as much as I did.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm grateful for every experience that has led me to this point. I've also settled on the idea that I now want to have like a lot of stories that exist. Like this has really like created an itch, like that I always knew. You always want to produce something.
Are you going to do the artwork as well for a lot of the projects?
For the next little bit, like it'll be me. I always would love to collaborate, because I think that two people doing 100% of the thing that they of their job will make a story that's 300% as good as it could be.
Mm-hmm.
So I would love to work with other people, but no, I'm totally happy learning, because there was a point where I didn't think I was going to be able to learn to draw. Like I just
Yeah.
thought that I would be a okay artist, but I'm happier with my artwork now, and I'm learning. You know what I mean? It's like I'm willing to push the envelope, and I want to get good at that part too, which I also think that will make me a good comic writer, because if I can communicate with an artist because I've done the work, that's how I learn, then I'll be able to craft a better story working with somebody else. So I think that I'm at the juncture right now where I should be doing it on my own for a little bit.
Yeah, because you've been when did you have the first comic out? Not like with mini comics, but with the anthology.
Oh my gosh, that was
it had to be like at least it had to be almost 3 years now. So
yeah, I think it was 2019.
You've been doing this for a while.
It's the thing that I've stuck with the longest. Like it's that intense passion project that I've never put down, and I'm so grateful that I found it, and I get to honor a lot of the things that have inspired me this way. And like I want my stuff to find Stephen King, so I have to get better.
Yeah.
Like I gotta be honest. Like if I'm being honest, like I would love for Stephen King to be aware that I want to be one of the many people it's going to take to fill his shoes in this state.
Oh yeah, you know, I understand that.
I have a part to play in that. I do. I believe that I'm getting really good at telling scary stories, and I'm working hard to get as good as I can be at every step of the way, because
I know we also talked about it too, but besides comics, you know, have you ever thought about, for the audience, thought about like doing a like horror novel like Stephen King, where you might like have like, you know, one of those things like once in a while you'll have a page that's just artwork that relates to the writing that's going on at the time.
I'm thinking about doing any or all of the 3 acts of the actual like long form Ransom Notes as a novel.
Gotcha.
Because I should be able, like, I want to create, you know, I want to write on a lot of different levels. So I should have it. I enjoyed the prose stories that I did here, and I wrote a couple of prose stories for the mini comic bundles too.
Yeah.
I enjoy it. I don't know, you know, I don't know what I don't know yet. So I would definitely, you know, I definitely need to get in touch with an editor and have that like set up so I can start to pass that through in chunks, because that does, you know, like, you know how it is to write and draw. You can communicate with yourself a lot easier than you can communicate with other people.
Oh, of course.
So I want to make sure.
But you know, I do have an editor that every time a new episode comes out, I make sure my editor goes through my work. See? So I'll send you that. I'll send you that website.
Awesome. Yeah, that'd be great.
It's basically a big company website, so they really charge you based off of how many words you have, and then they have like different tiers. Like this tier, they're just gonna fix grammar and like, you know, help you word stuff a little bit better. But then the higher tier is going to offer this, and that. But yeah, I, you know, you read A Vengeful Heart. I think it's helped me out a lot to have an editor.
It's great. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I'll definitely look into that. But no, I think that if you're going to do like a big form project, you should have it polished.
Anybody doing a comic should have an editor. You know, even if you think like you're the best person who has great grammar, there's always that person who knows better than you, because while you're studying your craft as an artist, they study their craft to be a proofreader.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So yeah, man. Well, it's been 50 minutes, you know. I don't know what else to say, man, but
No, I'm
proud of
good.
you.
Thank you,
For
man.
people
Like,
out there right now, you know, it's May 5th, and in 12 days, of course, we're not going to do it on that day because it's a Tuesday, so we'll have to do it like probably the week, that Thursday after that day. But yeah, we're going to be hitting 2 years for the show in 12 days, and it's just been really great, you know. Like me and Jason talked about in the beginning, we started just doing reviews for horror comics, and now we've had about like 12, 13 guests on the show, and it's been great to build not just, like you said, a community. It's like now we're building a community through through our show
yep.
as a horror creator. Like we've had about 12, 13 different guests on the show, and I told Jason I'm gonna try to see if for our second anniversary if we could just do a whole show dedicated to John Carpenter's The Thing, because we could talk a whole hour or two just about that.
Yep.
So, keep you guys posted about that. And yeah, guys, just again, the link is in the description, and right there, show some love for Jason and show some support, because it's a really good book, and it's on Etsy. Any hand signs it too, so yep.
Oh man, thanks guys. Thanks for hanging out. Gosh, Ronnie, thanks for having me on like as a guest tonight. Like that was
No
pretty
problem.
cool. But
I know I
no.
know I had to make it all about you this week, just because I read the book, and like I said, I read rough drafts of the book as well, so
Yeah.
I've seen it become like a newborn into a grown adult. So
Yeah. I'm pretty proud of it. I appreciate it,
you should
man. Like,
be.
it's awesome. Like it's my life's work. Like if I don't produce anything else, like I'm glad that this exists.
Mm-hmm.
I've got another book to mail out, and I think I'll be all caught up on my orders for now.
Gotcha.
But
You said you were going to talk about something that you've been working on secretly.
no, I was just
No?
you actually ended up segueing into it because
Okay,
I was gonna
gotcha.
talk about how I wanted to do the long form version of
Oh,
Ransom
okay,
Notes.
gotcha.
And you kind of hit on it because number one, I'm either going to do it as a web comic, or
Mm-hmm.
number two, it'll be a novel. But I want it more accessible than like to have to wait for it to go to printer. I
Yeah.
want to save that for like I got something else I'm cooking up, and it's gonna I'll have more info on that.
Mm-hmm.
Probably check my Instagram first for that. Fallbreaker Studios on Instagram. I might even have some info on that tonight. So
Gotcha.
we'll
All
see.
right.
But there's some scary stories that are gonna start popping out. And
Sweet.
like I wanna make some elbow room for myself.
Yeah, and guys, I'm working on episode 4. It's coming along. Sometimes, some days or some weeks, I just need the rest. With my movement disorder and everything. But I'm happy where I'm at. And I'm happy just getting the compliments. Like, I know from what you and Gary say, like with the horror, it's getting great and everything. But seeing people say like, "Wow, your color is coming along and growing really great, and your story composition is getting way better too." So yeah, really happy
Much
about that.
appreciated, man. Much appreciated. So yeah, like I'm actually getting ready to go work on my comic right now.
Oh, same here. But thank you, Gary, and everybody who's in the watching the show now. Thank you, everyone who's going to watch in the reruns. We appreciate it and we love you all. We'll see y'all next week. Peace.
Good night.